Unit 5 Review Part 2. What is the midpoint, or number 12, what is the midpoint of AC? So the midpoint formula, for those who've forgotten, and you need to know for your tests. X plus X divided by 2, Y plus Y divided by 2. So for AC, our X's are negative 3 plus 7 divided by 2. Our Y's are negative 10 plus negative 2 divided by 2. Negative 3 plus 7 is a positive 4. Negative 10 plus negative 2 is a negative 12. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Negative 12 divided by 2 is a negative 6. You need to remember the midpoint formula. And you need to show your work. Number 13, what is the slope of a median drawn from point A? In order to be a median from point A, it needs to leave point A and cross the midpoint of BC. So we first have to find the midpoint of BC. Again, using the midpoint formula. So our x's are 1 and 7 divided by 2. Our y's are 4 and negative 2 divided by 2. So the midpoint is 8 divided by 2 and 2 divided by 2, which would give me 4 and 1. So our midpoint would be here. And then I'm going to draw the median. Again from A to that point. Now to find the slope, another formula you have to remember. Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. So the slope for AC, or not AC, but the median, let's call A X1, Y1. So this point would be X2, Y2. So Y2 is 1, Y1 is negative 10. X2 is 4, X1 is negative 3. 1 minus negative 10, there's a double negative. So any time you have a double negative, it turns both into positives. So that becomes 1 plus 10, which is 11. Again, on the bottom you have a double negative, so it becomes a positive, and it's 7. So 11/7 is the slope of the median. Number 14, what's the slope of the altitude drawn from B? Now, the altitude will have to be perpendicular to AC. So you will have to first know the slope of AC, and then the slope of the altitude will be the opposite reciprocal. All right, so let's find the slope of AC first. Let's say this is x1, y1, x2, y2. So y2 is negative 2, y1 is negative 10. x2 is 7, x1 is negative 3. Double negative, so again, this turns into a positives. So that's positive 10, negative 2, so that's a positive 8. Double negatives, so that turns into a positive 10. Reduce 8 over 10 to 4/5. So again, that's the slope of AC. The slope of the altitude will have to be perpendicular to that slope. Slope of the altitude has to be perpendicular to AC. And we talked about it on several occasions, but lines that are perpendicular have to have opposite reciprocals for slopes. In other words, you have to change the sign and flip. So the opposite reciprocal of 4 over 5 would be negative 5 over 4. The, what is the equation of the line that contains BC? To write the equation of a line, you need to know the slope and you need to know the y-intercept. So we got to get the slope of BC first. So let's say this is x1, y1. This would be x2, y2. So y2 is negative 2, y1 is 4, x2 is 7, y1 is 1. So that would give me a negative 6 over a positive 6, which reduces to a negative 1. Right off the bat, that would eliminate choice B and D. But if you didn't have multiple choice, you still need to know how to find the y-intercept. You need to use y equals mx plus b. And you're going to choose either point B or point C as x and y. So I'm going to use point B since it has all positive numbers. And you're going to replace y with 4, m with negative 1, x with positive 1, and solve for b. So obviously the first thing I'm going to do is multiply negative 1 and 1, so that would give me 4 equals negative 1 plus b. Then you would have to add 1 to both sides, so that would be 5 is equal to b. So the equation would have to be C. What is the equation of a line that contains the perpendicular bisector of AB? So first thing you would have to do is know the slope of AB. let's say this is x1, y1, x2, y2. So y2 is 4 minus y1, which is negative 10, over x2, which is 1, minus x1, which is negative 3. Double negatives turns that into a 4 plus 10, which is 14. Double negatives turns that into 1 plus 3, which is 4. 14 over 4 reduces to 7 over 2. So that's the slope of AB. To be perpendicular to AB, you would have to be opposite reciprocals. So you would have to change the sign and flip. So it'd have to be negative 2/7. So that means I can eliminate J and G. And now we have to find the y-intercept again using y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to use point C, since it's already on my graph, to help me find the perpendicular bisector. So y is negative 2, m is negative 2 over 7, x is 7 plus b. Negative 2 is equal to negative 2 times 7. Negative 2 over 7 times 7 is negative 2 plus b. And then if I add 2 to both sides, I would get my intercept is 0. So that's not our answer choice. So let's see if one of the other answer choices work. Again, our slope is correct because 4 plus 10 is 14. 1 plus 3 is 4. Let me double check to make sure my math is right. I'm finding the slope of AB. 4 minus negative 10. 1 minus negative 3, yeah. And then I wanted the opposite reciprocal of that. So that's negative 2/7. Yeah, everything looks good so far. So there's not only one line that could be a perpendicular bisector, obviously. So let's look at my answer choices and use them. Perpendicular bisector would have to go through the midpoint of AB. So we need to find the midpoint of AB. And we're going to use this point to help plug it in to the answer choices to see if we get the right one. So the midpoint from A to B would be x negative 3 plus x is 1 over 2. Y negative 10 plus y 4 over 2. So that negative 3 would turn to negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Negative 10 plus 4 is going to give you a negative 6 divided by 2 is a negative 3. So negative 1, negative 3 right here would be the midpoint. So now I'm going to plug that in to see if I get a balanced answer. So y is negative 3, negative 2 over 7 times x, which is negative 1, plus I'm going to convert this into an improper fraction. 21 plus 2 is 23. So 23/7. All right. Let me extend the page. So what I'm trying to tell you is that -3 should, let's see if it equals -2/7 times -1 is a +2/7 plus 23/7. -3 equals 25/7. That's false. So now let's see if it works in the other one. Again, it's -3 equals -2/7 times -1 plus, or it's minus this time. Minus 23/7. All right, so that's -3 equals +2/7 minus 23/7. That's -3 equals 2 minus 23 would give you a -21/7. -3 equals -3. So the answer is H. That was a nasty problem, but we got the answer. And number 17, what is the equation of the line that contains the altitude from point A? So the altitude has to start at point A, and it has to be perpendicular with BC. So I need to know the slope of BC, which I'm sure I found it before on a previous page. -1. Good. The slope of BC was -1. And the slope is -1. The altitude has to be perpendicular, so that means it needs to be the opposite reciprocal. So the slope of the altitude would need to be a +1. Okay, and it comes from point A. So that's y equals mx plus b. I need point A. Point A is -310. Let me go get my son. I'm gonna have to. It's the last problem. I'm almost done. All right, -10 equals +1 times x, which is -3 plus b. So that's -10 equals -3 plus b. Add 3 to both sides, so that gives you -7 equals b. So the equation would be y equals -x minus 7. And this should conclude. No, there's more. I'm going to have to take another break. I have to go get my child, and I'll be back.